الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In this week's lesson we will be looking at the section from Imam Quduuri Rahmatullah alayhi's Mukhtasar, which in Arabic is entitled as Babu Salat al-Marid, and thereafter, if we have time, we will then make a start on the next section, which is Babu Salat al-Musafir, the prayer of a traveler. Now this section which we have in front of us, Babu Salat al-Marid, I'm not going to go into any detail in terms of what the actual text says, but I'm going to look at some contemporary issues firstly with regards to praying Salah on a chair, and also some other issues with regards to those who are bedridden, whether they would have to pray Salah, whether namaz is still obligatory upon them, and thereafterwards we will then pick out a few rulings from this particular section and conclude this section of Mukhtasar al-Quduuri in terms of Salah of a sick and an ill person. Now the first section which I want to, or the first topic which I want to touch on under this section is with regards to the fiqh of praying Salah on a chair. Now before we look at the exact ruling, just a few points which need to be clarified or which needs to be mentioned firstly, and that is that Qiyam or standing is considered to be a rukn, is considered to be one of the essentials and one of the compulsory acts of Fard Salah. i.e., if a person was to pray his Fard Salah in a sitting position when that very same person was capable of praying Salah from a standing position, then such a Salah would be considered incomplete, such a Salah would be considered invalid. And that's why when we look at the books of Hadith, we can find that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while traveling, he would sometimes perform nafil salah on his mount, on his conveyance, but he would always descend from his camel, from his horse, from his donkey when performing the Fard Salah. And never once in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam perform his Fard Salah whilst traveling on his mount, on his conveyance. And from this we can derive that if Qiyam or standing had not been an essential of Salah, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have prayed his Salah in a sitting position on his conveyance. And this hadith can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari, narrated by Sayyidina Jabir radhiyallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam offered his prayers upon his conveyance, upon his transportation, in whichever direction the animal was facing. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam intended to perform the Fard Salah, he would climb down and face the Qibla. Quite clearly mentioned in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari. So what we can do is that Qiyam or standing in first salah is one of the requirements, is one of the essentials of salah, and if a person did not perform the first salah in a standing position where he was capable or able to do it, then such a salah would be considered invalid. The next point to mention here is that if a person is capable of standing, even for a short period of time, it is also obligatory and first for him to stand for as long as possible. And if in that situation, if a person sat down and prayed his salah would not be done, his salah would be considered incomplete. Now, Imam Haskafi rahmatullah alayh has mentioned this in his Durr Mukhtar, where he's mentioned that if one is capable of standing for a short while, it is necessary to do so in accordance to the duration of one's ability, even though it may be for the duration of one verse or one takbir, i.e. Allahu Akbar. For indeed the partial, i.e. the juz, is considered to be for the overall, i.e. the kul. So what we can derive from the second rule and second principle, and also from the reference from Imam Haskafi rahmatullah alayhi's Durr Mukhtar, is that a person, he should stand if he is capable for even a short while, and if he is capable of for a short while, then he should stand for that amount of time. If he didn't, his salah would not be done. Now this takes me on to the next part, is that if a person is unable to stand due to some medical reason, due to ill health, due to, say for example, he is unable to perform or stand up and do the qiyam, then in that situation such a person would be allowed to pray salah. However, in that situation he should pray salah sitting down on the ground and not pray salah on the chair. Now this is very important, because the books of fiqh where he mentioned that a person he can sit down and pray salah, it's referring to sitting down on the ground, on the ard, and performing salah. It doesn't mean sitting down on the chair, on the kursi, and praying salah. It actually means sitting down on the floor, on the ground, and performing salah. So what I'm trying to say is that if a person, say for example, is able to sit on the ground and perform salah, then he should perform salah seated on the ground, and he should then gesture the sujood, and then he should gesture the ruku. If, say for example, if somebody in that situation prayed salah on the chair, his salah would still be done, but it will be considered slightly disliked in terms of he was able to perform salah on the ground, which is the actual sunnah. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his later age, when he was old, he prayed salah on the ground, he prayed salah on the floor. So you should pray salah on the floor. However, if somebody did offer salah sitting on the chair, then that salah would also be considered correct and valid, but disliked to a certain extent in terms of doing something which was against the sunnah. So that was one issue which I wanted to mention. The second issue which I'm going to mention is that if a person has had a stroke and he could still move some part of his body, but the other part he can't. So in that situation, the ruling is that somebody should then perform tayammum for this individual, and that this individual should then pray salah. However, if, say for example, that person most likely is going to be in hospital. If there is no one there to perform tayammum, then that person is considered to be ajiz, i.e. incapable. He should then read salah without wuzu, and there is no need for him to repeat that particular salah. So that is a ruling with regards to those who are very, very ill. They are bedridden, they've had a stroke, and they can't move around. So what would happen is that somebody would perform tayammum for them. If they obviously can use water, then they should do that. If they can't use water, then they would do tayammum. If somebody can't perform tayammum for them, if they can't do it themselves because of their lack of movement, then in that situation, that person is considered to be ajiz. He is considered to be incapable. He is considered to be in need. Hence, what would happen is that he would now perform salah without wuzu, and there is no need for him to repeat the salah. Now, we're just going to mention a few rulings from this particular section. Imam Quduuri rahmatullah alayhi mentions that if someone is ill and he is unable to stand and pray salah, salla qa'idan. He should then sit down and pray salah, yarka'u wa yasjudu, and he should then perform the ruku and perform the sajda and the prostration. He then goes on to say that فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعِ الرُّكُوءَ وَالسُّجُودَ, that if this person is unable to perform the ruku, he is unable to prostrate, then what he should do, أَوْمَا إِيمَاءً, he should then gesture the ruku and the sajda, وَجَعَلَ السُّجُودَ أَخْفَضَ مِنَ الرُّكُوءِ, and when he comes to perform the sajda and the prostration, then remember that the prostration, when he comes to perform it, should be lower, أخفض, than the actual ruku itself. So he should slightly bow down for the ruku and bow down even further when it comes for the sajda and when it comes for the prostration. He then goes on to say that if a person is unable to sit down and perform salah, then the Sharia says istalqa ala qafahu, that he should then lie down on his back, waja'ala rijlayhi ila al-qibla, and he should spread his feet towards the qibla. Probably seen them sometimes in hospitals, that if someone is unable to sit down and pray salah, so what you should do is that you should make him lie down on the hospital bed, or what you can do nowadays with the hospital bed, you could actually move it forward so a person is kind of reclining on the bed and his feet is towards the qibla. وَأَوْمَا بِالرُّكُوءِ وَالسُّجُودِ, and he should then gesture the ruku and was-sujud and the sajda and the prostration and pray salah in that particular way. And he goes on to say that if somebody cannot do that, then it is also permissible for him to lie on his right hand side or lie down on his left hand side and have his face towards the qibla, wa awma, and he should then gesture the ruku and the sajda, and that would also be permissible and allowed as well. So he's got two things when it comes to lying down. Either he can lie down on his back, spread his feet towards the qibla and pray salah in that particular way, or the second option or the second way is that he could lie down on his right hand side or on his left hand side and then have his face towards the qibla and pray salah in that particular direction. The text then goes on to say that if someone is unable to even gesture, use his head to gesture the ruku and the sajda, then the ruling is akhar salah, that such a person should now delay the salah until he becomes better. So it doesn't become forgiven. So it's not like someone who's on her period, a woman who's on a period where the salah is totally forgiven. For this particular situation, the salah, the obligation is delayed in terms of when he gets better, then he would have to do qadha and pray the salah. The next section, some of the rulings here which we are not going to delve into. The next part which I'm just going to mention here, which is quite relevant, is that if a person is ughmiya alayhi, i.e. is unconscious for 5 prayers or more, then there is no need for him to do qada of that particular prayer or for all the prayers. However, if someone is unconscious for 4 prayers, 5 prayers or less, so it could be like 1 full day's prayer, or less than that, say for 4 prayers, 3 prayers, 2 prayers, or even 1 prayer, then such a person will have to do qada. However, if he was unconscious for more than 5 prayers, I should say, i.e. 6 prayers onwards, then such a person will not be obliged to do qada. So I'll just repeat that particular ruling and mas'ala again, that if a person, say for example, was unconscious, he fainted, and so on and so forth, he was in a coma, then such a person would have to do qada if his coma, if his unconsciousness lasted for 5 prayers or less. However, if his unconsciousness lasted for more than 5 prayers, like 6 prayers and on, then such a person would not have to do qada for the prayers. And the reason why is because more than 5 prayers, i.e. 6 prayers onwards, is considered to be kasrat, is considered to be more, is considered to be a lot. And when something becomes lot, when it becomes kaseer, one is not obliged to do qada of that anymore. And that is the same principle we apply when it comes to women when they're on the period, because a woman, she could be on a period, say, in every month for 10 days. Now, for her to do qada for approximately 60 prayers, if you include the 5 daily prayers and the witr prayer, for her to do 60 prayers qada every single month, that is going to be really, really difficult. So therefore, the Sharia has totally forgiven the prayers during her period, during her postnatal bleeding, during her nifas. However, similarly as well, that when a person, when he's unconscious, when he has fainted, when he's in a coma and he's unaware, his mind is not there, and then this kind of form of unconsciousness lasts for 6 prayers or more, then the Sharia has also forgiven those prayers which he should have prayed or which he would have prayed if he was of a sane mind. So that concludes this section with regards to Salat al-Marid. The next section which we are going to look at and touch on is with regards to the prayer of a musafir and a traveler. Now, before we look at the text, I'm just going to firstly, in my own words, look at some rulings which are linked with traveling, which apply to travelers, and after going over those rulings, inshallah, we will then touch on the text which is in front of us. Now, the first section which I'm going to mention when it comes to praying salah, when it comes to a traveler's prayer, is with regards to women and Muslim sisters, that how or can they travel without a mahram? Can they travel by themselves from one place to another? Now, it is mentioned in a hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, لا تسافر المرأة إلا مع ذي محرم, which means that a woman, a Muslim woman, should not travel إلا مع ذي محرم, except with a mahram. Now, who is a mahram? Mahram is basically those men whom it is unlawful for this sister to marry. So it could be the sister's father, brother, son, or if the sister happens to be married, then her husband. They are a mahram. Her husband obviously is not a mahram, but you know what I mean. So basically the father is a mahram, the son is a mahram, the brothers are mahram, and then the husband. So basically when a Muslim sister is traveling, she cannot travel by herself. She has to either travel with her husband if she is married, and if she isn't married, then she will have to travel by her father or with her father. She will have to travel with her son. She will have to travel with her brother. Now remember, this traveling is if it's equivalent to 3 days and 3 nights, and we're going to look at that later, it is approximately 48 miles or 54 English miles. So basically, if a sister is, say, traveling from one place to another, but that second place she's traveling to is less than 48 miles, is less than 54 English miles, then technically speaking, she would be allowed to travel to that place by herself. So just say, for example, a sister wants to go from Birmingham to Warsaw, which is, say, around 7-8 miles away, or from Birmingham to Coventry, which is around 15 miles away from Birmingham, 15 to 20 miles away from Birmingham. So that woman would be allowed to travel by herself. Nothing wrong with that, technically speaking. However, especially in this day and age where fitna and mischief is at its all-time high, it's probably preferable and ideal that even in that situation, when a woman or when a sister is traveling from one town to another, from one city to another, even though it may be within the 48-mile radius or the 54 English mile radius, it is still preferable for that Muslim sister to be accompanied by a mahram, accompanied by her husband, because Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayh, who is the one of the students of Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, he's of the view that irrespective of the distance, it is not permissible for Muslim women to travel by themselves. Which then takes me on to another ruling or another masla which is very, very common, and that is that we see sometimes women, they travel by themselves. They're going to a place which is, say, 54 miles away, say from Birmingham to London, Birmingham to Manchester, Birmingham to Newcastle, but they're not traveling with their mahrams. They're not traveling with their husbands, but they're traveling with a group of friends. And they say that, look, the same way our husband protects us, similarly our 5-6 friends which we have here, a group of friends meaning a group of Muslim friends, we are also going to protect each other. So then they travel with them. Sometimes what could happen is that they have a Muslim friend and she's going with her husband to, say, from Birmingham to Manchester. So what the Muslim sister is doing, she then kind of joins up with this Muslim friend of hers and they travel with that Muslim friend's husband. Again, that is also not permissible. These two things are not permissible. What I'm trying to say is that a Muslim sister individually needs to have her own mahram. She cannot travel with another sister's mahram, and also if they are just group of sisters, group of women, even though they may be trustworthy, even though they may be very, very pious and very, very religious, and sometimes people think that it's all based on, or if the group of women you're traveling with, if they are pious, then that's okay. It's not based on that. Even if the group of women or sisters are very, very pious, they're very, very righteous, then then even traveling with them by yourself, that would not be allowed and that would not be permissible. So just keep that in mind. It's very important for Muslim sisters to know this, that it is not permissible for them to travel to a place which is 48 miles away, which is 54 miles away, 54 English miles away, without being accompanied by without their husbands being with them, without their mahram being with them. And as mentioned, that is considered to be a grave sin in the eyes of the Sharia. we'll leave it there for this week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to act upon what's been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.